Masculine Mindset Show. It's Adam Skoda. Today's topic is conquer your fears fast. And I'm with my buddy. His name is Brett Backerman. And I'm excited to introduce him to my listeners today because he is a badass. So, how you doing there, Brett?
I'm good, man. Good morning. Good to meet everybody. Good to be here. Thanks for inviting me on the podcast.
No problem, man. No problem. Before I go on a tangent, on normally what I can do with talking about my favorite topics ever. This is one of my favorites is conquering your fears. What have you learned throughout the years in conquering your fears?
Oh, man. So it all started from an early journey, early on in childhood. I used to be very nervous. I used to be very anxious, and my whole life was riddled by fear. And, I got really big in that, like alcohol, drinking, partying, and I would always numb it. And I would, bypass the fears. And I would always go to a journey where I didn't want to face them. I really didn't want to face myself. I didn't want to face rejection because essentially for me, fear stems from not feeling lovable, being defective, essentially deep rooted sense of inadequacy and not feeling good enough to do whatever it is you want to do. And I've always been very driven and ambitious. So I was in a bit of a dilemma. So as I got a bit older, I got really big into self-help, self-growth, deeper work, coaching, mentorship. And I'm very grateful for everybody that I've invited into my life to help me along the way. And I've ultimately come to realize our best lives, especially as men, that masculinity, and this just goes for everybody, is to leave your comfort zone and to find your stretch zone where you're not overwhelming yourself, but you are always continually leaving your comfort zone. And for me, that means obviously conquering your fears. And we all realize, for me, I realize fear is bullshit. It's lies we tell ourselves, it's distortions. And we are so much more worthy and deserving of the great things in our life and that abundance that we don't really think that we inherently are deserving of. So I ultimately decided one day that I was just going to start really conquering my fears. I was going to really find out who I am, what I want out of life, what my purpose is, and really start going after that. And when you have that direction, you can really begin to get an idea of what you want out of your life, what you want out of, your situations, what you bring to the world, what you bring to the universe, what value and energy you could bring to other people. So that was the first thing that I did. And then I started really tackling my fears, what scared me, what am I hiding from? Always asking myself, right? Doing journaling, right? Daily inventory. How can I be better than I was yesterday? And through my journey, I've come to realize I'm at my best self when I'm conquering my fears, when I'm putting myself out there, when I'm talking to the girl that I see in the street, when I'm trying new things, when I'm traveling, when I'm doing the things that for one reason or another scare me. That to me means that's something that I need to be doing.
So true, dude. You know, a very long time ago, I'm actually going to come out with a story that I have not said on my podcast yet. And
Mhm.
Brett knew prior to the interview that I told him I worked with Jason Capital. And you guys, I really want to tell you all this. That is, this man actually motivated me to publish my very first podcast. And it was on one of his YouTube videos. And I'm not kidding you, Brett. The reason I was so fucking nervous to publish this podcast is because it's called How to Comfortably Talk About Sex with Your Partner. All right. And in this episode, to all my listeners, okay, basically you can hear me seducing my previous partner in real time. And so how many guys out there would be afraid to put that out there? Can you guess?
I'd say pretty much everybody, every guy, 9 out of 10, 9.99 out of 10. That's understandable. And I'm
Yeah.
really proud of you for putting yourself out there like that, dude. You've made such strides.
Yeah, dude. That right there, that honestly, I have to thank Jason for that. So if you're listening, shout out to you, man. You're a fucking legend. Now, something I have written down in my article called "Everything You're Afraid of Turns You Into a Better Man." Isn't that right, Brett?
100%, without a doubt, dude. I think everything that we're hiding from is the gold nugget that we need to look at, that we need to see so we can become better men. Because I always say on the other side of fear is growth, and growth is where we could become the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah, dude, it's so true. So, to all my listeners listening right now, if you are afraid, for example, to implement one of my escalate and release techniques on the episodes, for example, tease women to want to kiss you. Okay, I have this really naughty tonality, right? But I'm just actually going to say this right now. If you guys are nervous to implement anything in that episode, I honestly don't blame you, but I've learned through experience that when you implement these particular techniques, it you're giving women the hottest seduction ever. Okay, I'll just give you an example. Okay, stop corrupting me with your seductive eyes. I'm not that easy. Boom, escalate and release. So you look at her lips, that's the pull. And then you say, stop corrupting me with your seductive eyes. I'm not that easy. That's the release. And the release is basically a takeaway. So, fancy term of saying escalate and takeaway. Now, if there's anything that you want to bring to my listeners on what would be a good way to basically follow their fears, because I think that that one is a great one to just implement escalate and release or escalate and take away. So go ahead.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I thought that was great. I always say when escalating, the woman's biggest, sexual organ, they always say is the brain. And so many guys go for touching, and pushing. I've spoken to so many girls over the years in my dating life, as well as dating coaches. And everybody will always say vocal tonality is huge, but also priming them up and giving them those moments through escalation verbally, right? Bringing them to that moment. So I think that's great that you touched on that. If I could say anything though about conquering fears to answer your question, I basically feel that for me, I'm very big into introspection, inner game, journaling, getting that down, and then going out there in the world and taking massive freaking action to conquer your fears and knowing what your fears are. So for me, my hugest fears were fear of rejection, obviously. I think that's for a lot of guys. I also have a lot of fear of the unknown. I'm a recovering nice guy as well. So I always crave certainty. I wanted everything to be certain. I wanted all the ducks lined up. I wasn't comfortable being uncomfortable. So that was something I had to work on. Being okay with uncomfortability, the uncertainty, the mystery of life, so to speak. That was a huge one for me. And also fear of not being good enough, right? Like deep-rooted inadequacy. So I had to ask myself, what do I think I'm not good enough for? Why is that? Is this true? Do I know this to be true? So a lot of times our fears are based on distortions and perceptions in our mind and stories we tell ourselves from things that happened in the past that aren't relevant to this day. And there's a lot of guys out there living with outdated paradigms and outdated roadmaps to how they live their life. And, that's one of the reasons why I want to get into coaching, because I want to use my experience to help guys overcome all of that, because I've been through it and I know how it is. I think for me, the best thing to do is figure out what your fears are, what really scares you, and to slowly develop a plan by taking, again, massive action, putting yourself out there, treating the world as a science experiment, so to speak, and going out there and proving to yourself, getting new data, getting new evidence that your fears don't define you and that you are probably much better at all these different areas that you're afraid of than you think you are.
Yeah, dude, so fucking true. You know, I could go on a million different paths on what you said, but I'll just go down one path, and that is this. You guys, what Brett says is 110% correct. You never want to basically just get too scared of the unknown. And I think we all are, we all have that fear of the unknown, but I'm telling you guys right now, the minute you go into that cave that you're afraid to enter, that's where you find your purpose. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, well
That's
said, man.
Yeah, that's where you find your masculine purpose. And I often say on my previous episodes where I talk about when I get the chills, I don't know if it's either my masculine purpose or my dark side, because I do touch upon. There's an episode that I did with Mike from the Courageous Man. We both know Mike because we're in the same community. And really, what I said on one of my previous episodes on why men must have a dark side with Mike, we were both touching upon the correlation between the masculine purpose and your dark side. So if you have anything to say on this topic, let me know, because I think that this it fucking fascinates the hell out of me, because I think that in order to become a more masculine man, you have to know that dark side. You have to also know your masculine purpose.
Oh, dude, without a doubt. So I've gotten really big recently into shadow work. So I know that's evasive for a lot of people. Shadow work is essentially getting in touch with your primal side, right? That dark side that we talk about, because there's so many men out there that suppress their dark side, right? It could be so much things. It could be aggression, sexual urges, whatever have you be. And so what I've come to realize is these thoughts pop in our head throughout the day, right? These primal, deeper urges that we suppress since childhood, right? Maybe your parents, teachers in school, mentors, society, whatever have you, movies, whatever you might, what it might be for you, mold us from a very young age that we shouldn't have these urges, right? These societal ways of living. And we end up holding on and suppressing a lot of masculine urges. Now, I'm not saying to go out there and become a sociopath and just do everything right. It could not punch your neighbor in the face, or screw your best friend's girlfriend or something like that. But what I'm saying though is to get in touch with your masculinity through shadow journaling, through shadow work, and at least acknowledging that you have these urges so you don't suppress them and they don't pop and blow up on you, which happens to a lot of guys, right? We'll hold on to things, we'll hold them deep in our core, and we're not acknowledging them. And then we get very frustrated in a lot of ways because it's blocking our energy and it's blocking our life force to not acknowledge these feelings and these urges and these thoughts that come. So I've gotten very good, and I highly recommend it, is going into the subconscious and allowing it to come to the surface. My way of modality with it is journaling, where I'll do shadow journaling on the spot. If I have like an urge that my mind tells me, Brett, you shouldn't think that way. You shouldn't be thinking that. I will write it down and say, wow, that girl's really, really hot. Blah, 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 blah. Wow, this guy really pissed me off. Blah, 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 blah. And I'll just go to town, and then I'll delete it, or I'll write it on a piece of paper and then throw it out. But I will let it come to the surface and I will acknowledge it. So that way I better know myself. I'm not hiding from those feelings. I'm bringing them to the surface, and I walk around much, much lighter on my feet throughout the day because I don't have this like 100-pound rock carrying on my back of deeper rooted, urges that I'm not bringing to the surface, that I'm not owning. I think it's very important for everybody to do, shadow work or some sort of deeper work or get in touch with their dark side, because it becomes the yin and the yang, right? You have the dark side, you have the spiritual side, you have all these different sides to us. And none of it should really be neglected in any way, shape, or form.
God, dude, I love what you said so much, because I have an episode basically called 77 Ways to Develop a Masculine Mindset is released. And in that episode, I say very clearly, you have a light side, you have a dark side, you have a nice side, you have a jerk within you. That's a big teaser there. Again, I'm not gonna go into detail on this. I want you to get my book instead. It'll be in the show notes. But what I mean when I say you have a jerk within you, that means you are going to discover your inner bad boy. Okay? That right there is shadow work, is what Brett is really talking about. Every man listening to my show right now, you have a jerk within you. You do. And if you do not address that, then you're going to manifest that part of you in ways where you don't want to. And that's why I love what Brett said so much, because he's 110% correct, you guys. You have to journal out like all of your dark desires. All of your dark desires. And get real with yourself too. Like, what are your dark desires? But don't. Okay. I have an action-based book, and in this book, you guys, I literally give you guys essential tasks to complete, and that's why I really relate to what you said, Brett, so much, because I think that every man should journal out their dark desires, but obviously do some introspection, because be careful. I'm not telling you guys to fucking go be a fucking violent person. I just want you to just basically find that part of you that can be a bad motherfucker. There you go. That's what I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, it's very well said, man. The last thing I'll say about that is I would start doing that as soon as possible. I would start acting on it. And, obviously if you want to have like a safe friend, like one or two friends that you're really close with, I don't know if you have like a therapist or somebody like that, because it's very good to work through these emotions if they're coming to the surface for the first time. You don't want to do anything impulsively. You don't want to go out there, start fighting people, right? You don't want to go out there inappropriately hitting on every woman that you see, especially if it's like somebody that you know in a social circle. You want to be able to really, first thing you want to do, the first step is acknowledging and coming to bringing to life, to the surface, these urges, your darker side, because a lot of times we hold it in 15, 20, 30 years. So getting in touch with it and befriending it is one's journey on its own. And that's definitely something not to be done alone. Maybe a men's group or a coach or something like that. It's something that definitely a journey that you should invite some people along to, get familiar with this side of you as well. So you could bring it out there into the world in an appropriate manner and a safe manner too.
Yeah, definitely a safe manner, because I don't want my listeners to misinterpret me, as sometimes they will do. They'll be like, "What, Adam? You don't want to be." Basically, I have an episode called "10x Your Masculinity and Destroy the Nice Guy Syndrome." So, all right, Adam, you basically want me to be an asshole or like a jerk or like the biggest douchebag on the face of this earth. No, when I released that episode, I was a bit confrontational on my show. I'm going to be real with everyone, but the point behind that episode is to remember that when you are nice from a place of with them, or like what's in it for me, that's manipulation, isn't it, Brett?
It's huge, man. As a recovering nice guy myself, I mean, there's so many also great books out there. I'm going to recommend too, obviously, No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover is the Bible of recovering nice guys. I've done work with him myself. I highly recommend him. He is one of the best out there and a mentor to many recovering nice guys. There's also another book, Not Nice, by a guy named Dr. Aziz Gazapur. I think that deserves a shout out as well. But essentially, nice guy syndrome is something that is deep rooted in a guy who feels that in order to get his needs met, he has to be nice to everybody. And that could mean love, respect, a ride somewhere, right? We feel that in order for people to like us and to live a problem-free, smooth life, we have to be nice to everybody. And it is a horrible paradigm. Like I said before, it's an outdated roadmap that was put in us in a much younger age, that we've brought into adulthood, that no longer serves us and is only blocking you from deeply connecting with people. It's blocking you from your masculinity. It's blocking you from being of real service to the world. And yes, you were right, Adam. I love what you said. It is very manipulative. And the nice guy doesn't get that. He's like, what do you mean? I'm nice to everybody. I'm the nicest guy in the world. Because there it goes. It speaks for itself. If I'm very nice to everybody, everybody should be nice back to me, shouldn't they? But that's not how life works, because it's the rough edges that bring us all together. And, there's a lot of nice guys out there that struggle with this. And I wish nothing but growth for each and every one of them. That I hope they come across guys like yourself, right? Guys like Dr. Robert Glover, or, anybody out there who can help them overcome it. It is the road less traveled, but it is a fulfilling journey if you put yourself out there, conquer your fears, and give yourself a chance, which brings us back to the podcast.
Yep. I like to roll off the cuff like that. So I like that we can kind of go back and forth and
yeah,
just basically talk about all kinds of things that I think that all my listeners need to know about, basically conquering your fears, discovering your inner bad boy, but more importantly, as Brett was saying, that book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, I have skimmed through it, haven't read all of it to a detail, but I will say this, you guys, what I've taken away from that book is No More Mr. Nice Guy really says, don't, it's honestly passive aggressive when you're too nice, because then you have this built up turmoil, and then you come unpeeled on someone too easily.
Oh, absolutely, dude. There's a lot of things. I mean, we could do a whole podcast. I could do a whole podcast series on nice guy syndrome. But essentially, yeah, you're talking about, covert contracts, where if I do something for you, you do something for me. And there's a lot of bitterness and resentment in nice guys because, like I said, they're going about their lives all wrong and how they go about stuff. So they want to be liked by everybody. So they're doing all these things for people, but it's not coming from the bottom of your heart. even if you think it is. So you're not going to get that back from people because that's just not how life works. So you're setting yourself up for resentment. You're setting yourself up for bitterness. You're setting yourself up for falling short in a lot of areas of your life because a lot of nice guys expect people to be mind readers and they're going about it the wrong way to begin with. So everything's all messed up. All your relationships are messed up. Your friendships are messed up. You get mad at people. You victim puke. You lash out. People are confused. Like, wait, what do you mean? This guy was the nicest guy a second ago. Now he's flipping out on me, or he's detaching. Because nice guys aren't very good at speaking up for their needs because they don't know how to get them met appropriately. So they don't set boundaries. They don't have core values. It's very important to work through all these things. That's why I think a coach is great. A men's group is great. A mentor is great. So you can work through all these things as they're coming to the surface because you're going to be really confused otherwise. It's very important. I'm a high believer in mentorship and coaching. I'm very grateful for everyone that's been put in my life to help me along my way on my journey.
Yes, such a good point, Brett. I want to refer all my listeners to a podcast that I did with the Chisler James. In this episode, this is called "Why a Brotherhood Can Save Men's Lives,"
Yeah.
and it literally can, you guys. It 110% can. I am in several communities. I'm in Mark's community from the UMP, GP Penitentiary from basically Wes Watson, if you know who he is, Brett. And yeah, if there's any other communities that you're in that you could tell my listeners about, I think that would basically motivate them to get into a men's group. What other groups are you in?
Oh man, I could tell you quite a few. Obviously, we're in UMP. We're in Mark's community. That's how I met you. Very grateful for Mark. I've been in a bunch of other ones. There's a guy named Louis Farfields. They call him the text god. He's out in the Netherlands. I did some work with him. He was amazing. He was another dating coach I worked with. He specializes in texting, and those guys are great. And I loved how they were also from the other side of the world, from Europe. You bring a little bit different. We're obviously from the Western culture. I thought that it was very refreshing. They're very chill, very outgoing, very funny. Where I think a lot of times in America, everybody's trying to keep up with the Joneses. So I invited them into my journey. Obviously, like I said, Dr. Robert Glover has a community of coaches below him. And I'm in a men's group Monday nights with a guy named Tony who studied under Dr. Glover. And it is also a recovering nice guy group. I'm very, very close with those guys. We meet every Monday night. They're great. To anybody out there, I suggest joining a local men's group, preferably in person. If not, if you got to do the Zoom thing, do the remote thing, that's great. Join a men's group, get in touch with other men. It's very important to build tribe. So that is great. And I've also joined a company called Modern Success run by a guy named Jared Syke Lawrence. I am still a part of that community to this day. They coach in all other areas. They initially started as dating coaching. That is still their bread and butter, but they've evolved into Modern Success. They used to be called Modern Flirting. And they have all different groups of coaches that help you in all other areas of your life. Look them up. I highly recommend them. I am a part of that community now as well. And they have quarterly retreats. They coach with dating, business, inner growth, everything, anything you could think of, day game, night game, cold approach, texting, online dating. It's a brilliant model this guy Jared came up with. You can look them up too. And also, I'll disclose that I'm 5 years sober, so I am over 5 years sober. Very grateful for 12-step fellowships. I've got a lot of support there as well. Obviously, not everybody can relate to that, but I'm cool with disclosing that. And just all of my coaches along my journey, even my therapist, her name's Lorraine. She's amazing. She's helped guide me with my thinking, my thoughts, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, right? What we tell ourselves based on certain situations, right? How we perceive certain situations, and we go to the negative, how to really dispute that and reframe it to something a bit more rational, right? Because if you don't think you're good enough and you walk around your life full of fear, you're already expecting the ball to drop. You're expecting shit to hit the fan. You're expecting negative outcomes. And a lot of it is, it's lies. You could even go back to stoicism, right? Having a calmer mind, being more grounded with your thoughts and your fears, because a lot of our fears are distorted based on lies we tell ourselves. So we have to really look at this and put pen to paper on what we tell ourselves as we go about our daily lives, and really ask ourselves: is what I'm saying to myself true? Do I have any evidence, concrete evidence to back what I'm telling myself. And you'll see if you put pen to paper that it's not. A lot of the times it's not. We don't think we're attractive. We don't think we're lovable, right? We don't think we're good enough. And this turns into fear because we get scared. We're scared of the rejection, right? We're already like, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy that so-and-so situation isn't going to work out for me. And it's a lie. So you have to ask yourself, how do you know that to be true? Why don't you go out there and try something else? Try a new narrative, right? Start telling yourself positive things or, more rational things, right? Because sometimes positivity could be toxic too, right? You get too positive, you become one of those, which is okay. I mean, I'd rather be positive than negative, but I think middle ground, like calm, rational thinking has worked for me very, very well. So I'm grateful for my therapist, Lorraine. And the first thing I would say to guys would be to look for a men's group, whether it be remote or in the area. I would Google men's groups for whatever town you're in. Or if you really want to conquer your fear, if there's certain areas of your life you struggle in, look up coaches, look up a dating coach, like a guy like Mark, for example, right? Or a community, or if you want to get better at business, look up a business coach, right? If you want to get better at confidence, a confidence coach, even Adam, right? Adam's great at what he does. Like I'm a masculinity coach. Whatever it is that you might want to be, look up a coach in your area or look up top 10 coaches. But I would look up a few articles because some of them, you never know, right? Who's writing those articles. They could have a biased opinion. So I would look up like 5, or I would Google it 5 times, do your homework. And if there's somebody repeatedly showing up on those lists, those are the guys you want to reach out to. Do a consultation. I would start with a men's group though, above all else.
Wow, dude, I got the chills when you said that because I'm going to tell you something. Okay, what I tell my listeners that when I get the chills, it's honestly higher purpose. It really is. I fully believe it. I actually have the chills right now. Look, can you see it?
Yeah, I see those.
Yeah.
I see those
So,
bumps, bro.
so the reason I got the fucking chills is, guys, when he was mentioning modern success, inner game for success-minded men, that group with Jared Lawrence. I'm not bullshitting you. This is 110% truth. I got an invite to join this group this morning.
I highly recommend them. We'd love for you to join the gang if you're interested, dude. I'll take just a couple of minutes, man. I don't, I want to keep it on the podcast, but they've been such a great help to me. I joined their community last year, and they offer so many coaches in so many different areas of life. And there's also a very strong community there. A lot of people have joined. There's also people who have priorly joined, former students, and they offer so much value to the lives of men because there's so many different coaches. They're all very available. They're all very helpful. They're all very skilled at what they do. It's like an all-star lineup of coaches, and I can't thank them enough. So if anybody's interested, again, that's a modern success. Look them up, set up a consultation. They're all great, man. We'd love to have you on board.
Yeah, that's fucking great. I love it, dude. So I want you to tell my listeners a story on how you followed your fears in your social life, because I talk about that a lot on my show, obviously, because Masculine Mindset Show, I talk about fitness, relationships, and pickup, basically. So
Yeah, dude. All right. So I could tell you a zillion stories, but I will just talk something broader to give somebody, some hope here. I used to be very in my head a lot of the time. I used to be very intense. I'm like this New Yorker. I'm from Queens. I'm from Queens, New York. And I used to be this like tough guy in the corner, James Bond New Yorker. And I asked myself, what am I hiding from? What am I afraid of? And that was the real me. And I could typically be very fun loving and very extroverted. And I was holding back big time. So I told myself a year or two ago that I really wanted to get out there and start talking to people. And I wanted to start building broader social circles. And I really wanted to start showing up as the best side of me. So I made a deal to myself, and I would ask myself every morning, what do I want to do to make the world a better place? And the paradigm shift was, how can I bring good energy and value to the world? And little by little, I really started putting myself out there and talking to people everywhere I go. So I've become a bit of a social animal now, but that wasn't an easy thing to do. And it all started with approaching. So I like to use, I'll just give everybody a paradigm here for their daily life as they're approaching. It's the 3-second rule. If you've ever heard it before, you could make a decision in 3 seconds or less. It takes 3 seconds for you to talk yourself out of an approach. It takes 3 seconds for you to talk yourself out of doing something. So if I want to do something now to conquer my fears, I count down from 3 and I just do it. Even if I'm not ready to do it, I just do it. So I do think preparation is key. And the more approaching you do, if you want to talk about approaching, like approaching girls, I've got to the point where I look at approaching as also building social circles. And it goes beyond just approaching women for romantic interest. I might want to invite a woman into my social circle. I might want to approach a guy, see what his vibe is like, and get to know him a little bit. See if we could help each other out in some way. Business, friendships, social circles, common interests, whatever it might be. And I've come to realize that approaching goes beyond dating. And I've come to see that if you just give yourself a chance and you give yourself that 3-second period, it has to get to a point where approaching becomes as simple to you as breathing, where it would be weird if you didn't approach somebody. So that's one last thing I'd want to leave with the listeners about conquering fears in that arena. Though again, that we could talk about approaching on a whole other podcast because we could talk about that for hours. But I would say the biggest takeaway for me in the last year or two, and the best story I could give somebody, is changing my way of thinking in regards to what approaching means to me, what I can bring to approaching, being curious about people. And if you see somebody that you want to approach, just count down 3, 2, 1, and just go. Don't even think about it, you know? And also bear in mind that your approaching early on might not be that great. It might not go the way you want it to. You have to be okay with that. It might take you a little approaching. You have to keep consistent with it. It's like a muscle at the gym. You have to continually build it. You know, you might stutter, you might be nervous, it might not go the way you wanted it to, but you have to hang in there and you have to continue to do it, and you have to continue conquering your fears and give yourself a chance, because we're not good at a lot of things overnight, right? You go to the gym, it takes 3 to 6 months for you to really get an effective gym habit in.
Yep. Yeah. I want to tell a story to all the listeners real quick because I actually have about 3 minutes left on this call, which thank you, man. That was an awesome story. But I really want to tell all my listeners this. Just yesterday, it was Valentine's Day. That was when my book came out and released. But also, I want to tell you all this awesome story because this right here is what I told Brett that I'm going to tell all of you. Basically, here's what happened. I got one rose, just one. And then I went into the gym because I built a solid relationship with the personal trainer in the gym. He knows me very well. We're both cool. And basically, here's what I said. I said, dude, I would like you to give this rose to the one who's single. just give it to one of the front desk staff who's single, which, by the way, Brett knows in this community, I basically, full transparency, you guys, I know how attraction works. They are pretty much into me. The whole entire staff tends to fucking like get excited with me, and I don't want to. I always put up the brakes. I say no, because I'm not going to shit where I eat. But the whole point is give it to the one that's single. And then when I found out who the girls gave the rose to, I'm not kidding you guys. Okay, I'm gonna just say the letter K. That's all I will say because I don't want to put her name out there. But her face was red, which tells me everything I need to know. She has a thing for me, and I'm not guys. I'm not okay. A lot of people say, "Oh, this is Adam's ego now," but you guys, this is the power of basically knowing how to attract women, isn't it?
Absolutely, you've come so far, man. I love it, bro. Love to hear it.
Yeah. So I want to tell all of you guys this. That right there required me to follow my fears or conquering fears. That is where I want to wrap up this podcast on. If you guys want to conquer your fears, you absolutely must learn that conquering your fears requires courage. And now I'm going to wrap up this podcast by saying, dude, Brett, I appreciate you coming on the Masculine Mindset Show, and I can't wait to do like one more podcast before I close this down because I am stopping podcasting. So I appreciate you for coming on to the show, Brett.
Yeah, much love, Adam. Much love always for you, dude. I'm always here for you.
Awesome. I appreciate you.